Hey guys, it's that time of year again. Dogs, Gators, and the world's largest outdoor cocktail party. We give score prediction and preview for the big showdown. Also, we have Daniel from the Brutal Truth Florida Football Podcast. He gives his thoughts on the Billy Napier era, and we give our opinion on the Jacksonville, Georgia, Florida series going forward. Make sure to like, subscribe, and share. All those things are really help us out. Hey, Daniel.
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me, Trey.
Yeah, I really appreciate you coming on. So we got Florida, Georgia week, Florida, Georgia, Florida, vice versa. World's largest outdoor cocktail party, big time matchup. But before we dive down into that, I want to give a shout out to our great sponsor here, Viva Tequila Seltzer. Another great sponsor this year for 20% off. Doghouse 20 gives you 20% off. You can get the watermelon, elderberry, huckleberry. One of my personal favorite is the watermelon flavor. VivaTequilaSeltzer.com. Please check that out. Doghouse 20 is the promo code. This will be great for the Georgia Florida game this weekend in Jacksonville. If you guys can check that out. Also, next week we're gonna have the CEO of Viva Tequila Seltzer, so that'd be a great show next week. Diving into it, Georgia Florida and both teams coming off a bye week. So first off, before we get a deep dive into it, Daniel, any kind of injury type news or injury situation news for on the Gator side, or you're getting any guys back that'll make a difference?
What I'm hoping to see back is our center, Kingsley Aguakin. He's been, I think he's only played one or two games this year. I know that he played in the Kentucky game, wasn't quite 100%. I don't believe he's played outside of that. He's had an ankle injury, but we're hoping to have him back this week. I just double checked to see if the depth chart had been released to see whether or not he'd be back. With that said, uh, Slaughter, who's a second, not second, sorry, the second string guy who's a redshirt sophomore, has been one of our best, if not our best rated offensive linemen on Pro Football Focus. But of course, playing center is more than just blocking ability. It's also, calling out protections and helping out with that. So we're hoping to get him back, as well as Andy Jean, who's one of our true freshman receivers who's shown the ability to be explosive. He did miss the South Carolina game. So hopefully, if he's back, that just brings one extra dynamic player, which is what we're going to need if we're going to be able to take on your defense.
Yeah, I think that's great insight there. For Georgia, very banged up team. As everyone knows, Brock Bowers is going to be out for a while. Not really sure in from what I've been hearing more and more. Hopefully, if we do make it to SEC championship game, we'll get him back, but we'll see. He's going to be out for a while. Amarius Mims, who's the starting right tackle, who's been out with similar injury. He had the tightrope surgery. I think he did some things last week, but not sure if we'll see him for maybe a little bit of the series. Xavier Truss, I think we're going to get him back because he was banged up in the Vanderbilt game. Also, I think Kendall Milton should be a good go after that sprained NCL. He's always been kind of hurt. Hopefully, we get him back. And then Roderick Robinson, who's been out several weeks as well with an ankle injury. I hope we get him back at running back. So all in all, we're still banged up football team, but that was a much needed buy. So we'll see for the cocktail party. And then yeah, jumping into it, looks like 14 and a half point spread for all you people that follow out there. I always like to kind of follow it because it just shows kind of where the public is leaning. Neutral site field, as we know, weather should be great. Wanted to get the different matchups for you, Daniel, and what you think the pros and cons are, strengths for the Gators in the matchup, and yeah, just kind of get a breakdown.
Okay, yeah. Um, I will say this: looking at Edwards, I know you're talking about Milton's been injured, sorry, and Robinson's been injured. But I actually looked at Edwards earlier. I'm like, this dude's averaging 5.8 yards per carry, so that's going to be something to keep an eye out. Of course, against Kentucky, we had the problem of taking down their running back and allowed 9.1 yards per carry. And so I think on our end, it's definitely slowing down that running game. I do expect you guys to still be able to throw it. I am concerned because you're a top 5 passing offense and by far the best passing offense we've faced. The two top, we've only faced 250 or top, we've only faced two top 50 passing offenses. One was Vandy, we allowed 280, and then we allowed over 300 to Spencer Rattler in our last game. Now we're coming against you guys, and of course, your biggest weapon, Brock Bowers, being out is definitely helps. But the question is, can we contain the rest of your offense, your passing game? I think we have lots of good players, whether it's Jason Marshall, Jaden Hill, Jalen Kimber at the corners and star position, but our safeties are mostly true freshmen or true sophomores. And of course, that could be problems. So I'm hoping we can contain your passing game. That way they can help out in the running game, because if you guys can run or pass on us, it's going to be a longer day for us. Our defense at times has looked great. And then, of course, like I said, when we face some of these better offenses, at least passing offenses, the last few weeks, it's looked not so great. And as far as I think you said, Mims, your right tackles had some problems.
Yeah.
We unfortunately are one of the worst teams with sacks. However, we get lots of pressure. So for us, it's about getting home and hopefully getting home and getting a few sacks on Beck for us. And if we can slow down the offense, that's going to at least make me feel better about us doing something on our offensive end, because the more chances, the more opportunity for us to break something. But I'd say the big key for us right now is stopping your top 5, ranked offense in the nation.
Yeah, completely agree. I will say one I didn't realize before doing a little research. So Graham Mertz, I believe, leads the nation in pass completion with over 70 over. I think it was over 75%, 76. But I thought that was very impressive. Carson Beck being number 5, and then you guys did have a good win against South Carolina, come from behind. So that was great, and you guys have really improved and done a lot better at with, because after that Utah loss, everybody was just, everybody overreaction. They were saying, 4-8, 5-7, Billy Napier hot seat. But you guys are slowly, quietly, 5-2, had some good wins. So I kind of give that to you. And this being in Jacksonville, I know years ago it used to be a house of horrors for Georgia in the '90s and 2000s. It's just one of those you could throw the record books out, because there was a lot of Georgia teams came in supposedly favored and the better team, and just couldn't get it done, as you've seen. So always got to respect the Gators in this one. I'm also respecting your running game, because we have struggled against the run. So the Johnson kid and ATN, I think, is two really great running backs, which we have to respect. And as you mentioned, Brock Bowers being out, so we have to somehow find a way to get our receivers going. So yeah, how about if you talk a little bit about the running game? And I know your O line struggles a little bit, but you got some great running backs.
Yes, I'd say our offensive line's biggest struggles in pass protection. Now we have some guys who are great at pass protection, but like Micah Mazkua, who we brought over from Baylor, who is an honorable mention All Big 12 last season and was, I think, a top 20 rated run blocking guard for Baylor. He's coming. He's done a good job in run blocking. And so it's helped out the running game. Now, granted, we had a few bad running games against, Kentucky. We didn't do too hot. We didn't do too hot against Utah. With that said, ever since we had the game against Kentucky, it looks like Billy Napier has opened up the offense a little bit. There's been a few wrinkles here and there that we've not seen, because after last season, I said the key to beating Florida was stacking the box, because we're not going to do enough beating you intermediate and deep to make that a problem. However, the last 2 games, we've seen more intermediate routes. Of course, last week we saw, or not last week, sorry, against South Carolina, we saw some deep shots. We saw a lot more intermediate. Graham Mertz, as you said, great completion percentage, but up until South Carolina, I believe it was around 70% of his passes were less than 9 yards. So of course that's not going to back out of defense. Well, now that we've put that on tape and we've got guys like Trey Wilson, who's a true freshman receiver. We talked about Andy Jean earlier. Trey Wilson is even more dynamic. He's got a lot of speed, a lot of shiftiness. Um, if we can utilize them, I think that's going to open up room because Trevor Etienne, of course, his brother Travis plays for the Jags in Jacksonville. Trevor, I think at one point was averaging over his last 9 games like 6.5 yards a carry against FBS competition. So if we can get him going, it's going to be great for us. Um, so that's a big hope. Get him going and also just hit enough passes, you know, 10 to 20 yards down the field. We don't need the deep shot, although I'll take it just to, get us a chance against you guys. And that's really why I've
Right,
hit the shots that back out your defense just a little bit because ETN's shown with a little crease, he can make some stuff happen.
right. Yeah, definitely respect your running game. I know Georgia side of the ball, everybody's worried about what are we going to do without Brock Bowers, but we have some very talented receivers that I think hasn't really seen because we were focusing a lot and trying to feed it to Bowers. I think Dominic Lovett is going to step up. He had a pretty good game recently against Vanderbilt. Ra Thomas is good for some long passes down the field. Arian Smith's one who's kind of had the drops, but can definitely extend a play and get downfield. And he's usually good for a couple of shots a game. Oscar Delt is the backup. He's not anything like Bowers, but he's comparable. And then I think Lawson Lucky is going to get a look. He looked really good in the spring. And I think we'll get the running game going. If we can get Milton, who looked really good in the Vandy game, he looked like that kind of jackhammer that can really, get that big 7 to 10 yards. And he's a big back. He's just always been hurt. And Dejon Edwards is real slivery, as they say. Not the fastest guy, but can like lean and get, definitely chunk yards. But with that said, did want to get your prediction and kind of get the Pulse 14.5 spread. Do the Gators cover in the cocktail party or get your prediction?
Well, I do think it's a tough matchup. Just for full transparency, I never pick against the Gators. I will usually find some route, that we can see. I'm not expecting to see like a 2014 situation where we're expected to lose by a bunch and then we
Uh,
run all over you guys and win by 18.
right,
But I do think it could end up being a close game. So what my prediction is that I've drawn up for the podcast for when I record is 21-20. Somehow we're going to hold you to a few field goals.
right,
And the difference between a lot of people will say, what's the difference between a 6 and 7 point lead? And that's a 6 point lead is a 1 point loss. I remember someone saying that after the 2000, a Tennessee fan said it to me after the 2006 Tennessee game, which is the game Tebow got put on the map where he converted the 4th and 1. And of course, we win the game, go on to win the national championship. So I do have some of that history. Like, okay, maybe this is a good number for us riding on it. But it is hope we just get a few stops we need. And then hopefully, Trevor Etienne can break one on you guys. But that's where I am. Do I think it's going to be a tough game and you guys have most things going for it? Yes, I'm willing to acknowledge that. I just, in all honesty, I'm not going to pick against the Gators, but I do think it's that close of a margin. I do think 15.5 makes sense as far as the spread goes, because when you look at our wins, we had a great win against Tennessee. I'm not sure if that win happens outside of the swamp because that's how much difference the team made. However, with that said, we we have had 5 wins. We've got a week off to get healthy. And one question I have for you before we get to your prediction is, what do you think about Georgia away from Sanford Stadium this year? I know that your 2 away games were against Auburn, where is come from behind, big win for you guys, and then against Vanderbilt, it was kind of close for a while. Now, granted, some of that is your offensive game plan thrown out because of Bowers, but it was close, and then you guys pulled away in the late third, fourth quarter. So, do you think that plays any? Does away from Sanford play any into your prediction for the game? I guess is the question.
Yeah, I do. Definitely good question. Yeah, they have struggled on the road. I mean, that Auburn game was very tight to the very end, and without Brock Bowers, we definitely don't lose that game. And then with Vanderbilt game, very sloppy. Big overall thing. If you look, you can look at all the stats and everything. The big one that I think Georgia needs to clean up and it'll be better are the turnovers. You look at all the ones. I think last game it was either I think it was 13 of the points were turnover. It's a bad pick by Carson Beck at the very end. I don't know who's throwing out. They said it was deflected or tipped, but it was you just don't make that throw. There was a fumble earlier in the game, and then in the Auburn game, I think we gave them either 10 or 13 points. There was a very early first possession, second half. Our tight end fumbled. So if we can clean that up, seem to be a pretty good discipline team. But I think Kirby, because he struggled as a coach, I'm sorry, he struggled as a player. I think he only beat him once, and this is in the '90s when Georgia just got dominated. I think he always circles this game, and he really wants it, so he's going to get him up, I think. And I'll roll in to make my prediction. The one thing that really stood out, and I didn't know it till looking at the game, so Florida on offensive third down conversion is ranked 109. Georgia is ranked first in the nation in defensive
Yep.
third down. I think that's huge. Also, you giving up, you guys couldn't really stop the Davis kid from Kentucky with 300 yards. Edwards had 12 carries for, I think, 116 and 2 touchdowns quietly. I think we'll be able to run that. And then as your kind of offensive line struggled, and we'll be able to get some pressure, even though we don't get a lot of sacks. I like us close at halftime, maybe even the third quarter, but I like us maybe getting like a late touchdown pull away. I'm gonna go 31-17 in a close one. And I don't think we covered this like 14 and a half, 15 and a half. And Georgia, I think, is only covered once this year in the Kentucky game. So that's what I'm going with. And I had another quick question for you before we look. Can you name? You might know this. Can you name Georgia's last regular season loss?
Oh, I was there 2020 against Florida.
There you go. Good call there. I didn't realize that too till diving in. But that's another one just because this is a tight game, anything could happen. So I think it should be a very competitive game.
Yep. And I'll say this, you are right about Kirby, at least from our perspective, that since he struggled in the 90s, kind of like how Steve Spurrier struggled in the 60s against Georgia. And then that was a game he circled every year. Like, we've got to win in Jacksonville every year. And seeing that definitely on your side, where Kirby has come in and said, this is a big game. And I'm not sure if Billy Napier last year understood the magnitude, but now he's got on his, I don't want to say on his assistant staff, but one of his, I don't, off the field assistants that comes in, helps out, type guys. He has Brandon Spikes, our former linebacker, and I can guarantee he's gotten a whole lot of earful these last 2 weeks about the importance of this game. So I'm hoping we see at least the intensity from our side pick up, because that's an edge that you guys have that we definitely don't, or at least have not had till this point, of Kirby saying this is the game. So I'm hoping we come out and show that we have the feeling that this is the game as well on our side.
Right. Completely agree. And then speaking of Jacksonville, one other question I did want to ask is, do you actually like the rivalry Georgia-Florida game being in Jacksonville, or would you like to see it go into a home and home type scenario going forward?
To be honest, and I'm kind of weird on this one. I do love it being in Jacksonville. I know that's not the weird part, but part of it is because I have an aunt and uncle that live in Jacksonville. So a lot of our, just family tradition is also tied up into going up to Jacksonville, all of us going tailgating, or last few years we've home gated at their house and then just driven to the game before, and then just having, lots of fun after. So yes, that kind of ties into it. I also saw Georgia come to Florida in 1994. I think that was cool, but for me, I like the unique atmosphere that is Florida Georgia. Granted, last year I was in the end zone sitting on the dividing line between Florida and Georgia, and that really was not fun in the first half. and then I moved with the rest of the family because some seats opened up right as the Gators had their little comeback for a second before you guys shut the door on us. But for me, it's just such a unique college football atmosphere. For me, it'd be sad to lose one of the few games. I think we're down to only 3 or 4 regular neutral site games. Army, Navy, Florida, Georgia, and Oklahoma, Texas. I just think it'd be sad to lose that uniqueness. I do see the side of like Kirby saying, "Hey, we're losing a recruiting weekend." Granted, this week, Florida's the home team, Georgia's the away team, so he wouldn't be losing one this week. But I understand, last year or next year, you guys would be losing one. Of course, now we can host recruits at Florida, Georgia. So for me, I'm hoping it stays, but I also know for everyone else why they feel that way. But for me personally, I'm very big on the Florida Georgia game staying in Jacksonville. One, for personal reasons, and then two, just for the tradition and uniqueness in college football.
Gotcha. Yeah, I completely agree with that. I mean, I always like it. The only reason why I'd like to maybe see it change, or if there's a way of maybe making it home and home, and then maybe in Jacksonville, is the whole gives a reason to go to the swamp. I personally never been in the swamp, been to Jacksonville several times over the years, so maybe give it a reason for Georgia fans, and then also Florida could come and play in Athens. So that'd be the only reason. And I kind of agree with the whole recruiting thing with Kirby because I feel like whatever he decides, he's got us headed in the right direction for sure. So that's my thoughts. But yeah, if it stays, that's
Yeah.
fine. It is very
Well,
cool though when they show the like I don't know a drone shot or whatever shot and it shows it completely split. It is great.
oh yeah. One thing I would say is it sounds like there's going to be renovations coming up
Yep.
sometime soon to the stadium. So I'm hoping that does give us at least one home and home. Uh, Same like you. You've never been to the swamp. I've never been to Sanford, and I'd love to get between the hedges. I do have a confession to make on the show. This may make me one of the persona non gratas, but uh, my uncle did go in 1995 when we went there, and he definitely has some clippings of the hedge still,
Okay.
or
Good.
the hedges still. Granted, they're about to be taken out because of the Olympics coming, but still, he took some of that, and it's up in Jacksonville. I'll probably see it this weekend.
That's cool. Very cool. Yeah. Little memorabilia. Or
Yeah,
yeah.
he was thanked though by the Braves fans because by what they said to him when they're parting in Atlanta after the game was, "Thank you for beating us so bad we could get out early and go watch the Braves win."
There you go. Awesome. That's sweet. And then I wanted to get your thoughts on Billy Napier. I know last year was a little bit of a letdown year, and then I know this year he's kind of rallied a little bit. But I want to kind of get your thoughts, kind of get the pulse of the Gator Nation about Billy Napier.
Well, right now the Gator Nation is still split. There are two camps. There's a camp who is always in the coach's corner up until literally the second they're fired, and there's also the wait and see camp. Um, and there's a little bit of people that just seem to be like they're never going to accept them. Uh, I would say as long as Billy continues to show progress, one of those things is we can't have a losing season this year. We still have, we've got you guys, Mizzou, who's now become a big one, FSU, LSU, and then Arkansas, to end our year. You've got to win at least one, in my opinion, two, get to 7-5, show a progress. That way there is no losing season, even with a bowl like last year. Um, and also hold together a recruiting class. He has his best recruiting class so far. As long as he holds that together, which I think he will, I got to see where we're still going. I'm kind of in the wait and see, but not in the negative wait and see. I think he's done a lot of good things. I personally know one recruit for a few cycles out that has told me amazing things about Billy Napier. So, in my opinion, as long as he continues to show progress and get some results on the field, I think we're headed in the right direction.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, I think is definitely with the recruiting we mentioned earlier. I think off the video here, great recruiting win this past weekend. I think you guys are. Is it top five currently? I haven't really looked what you guys.
Yes, we're top 5. We have an excellent defensive class. We've got one of the best quarterbacks in the class. I think we need some more top level offensive linemen, but we'll see how it shakes out. I know we're still in the play for one or two, but outside that, phenomenal top 5 class, and hopefully that helps bridge the gap between our current talent and your current talent.
That's great. And then one other question. Favorite? I know you've probably been to many of them. Favorite? We'll call it favorite Florida Georgia game you have attended, if you can remember one or anyone that just
Oh
really
man,
stood out.
I actually am going to say my top 5 favorite memories. Uh, I mean, to be honest, probably 2014, 2008 was great, but 2014, or not my nephew, my cousin was saying well before the game, we're going to win this game, and no one expect us to win. And he's like, we're going to win, we're going to win, and we're like, no, we're not. And before the game, I actually met Fred Taylor. He and David Green were doing a like trivia thing outside the stadium, and then we go from we're not going to win to somehow starting a true freshman, Treon Harris, who threw, I think, like 6 passes the
Yeah,
entire day. And
exactly.
somehow we win 38-20. That was just the big shocking upset that it was just so much fun to be in that atmosphere and go from, okay, I think we're coming here to lose to, oh my gosh, we just did something like insane. So I would say that would be probably my favorite one I've attended.
Yeah, I was actually at that game. Thanks for bringing. I was just saying, thanks for bringing that up. Same here. And Will Muschamp, ironically, was the head coach now with
Yep.
Georgia. I was at that game. I think for me, real quick, it would be probably the 2012 or the 2011, just because you guys had dominated recently. 2011, Aaron Murray had a couple of I think it was fourth down conversions, really big game, and then that Malcolm Mitchell touchdown at the end to get it 17-9. It's such a tight game. I'd say those two stood out. But I'd probably go to 2012 just because it was nerve wracking. It was a great win.
Yeah.
So that's what I would
Jordan
go with.
Reed going Superman at the end, fumbling the ball.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I remember that one. But definitely great rivalry and always a great game. And then also I want to bring up Daniel. How do we follow you on the socials?
Okay, yes. You can follow me if you want on Twitter at Gator Podcast. And also, yep, there we go. At Gator Podcast. You can also check me out on YouTube, Gator Truth Florida Football Podcast. It is a long name. How that came about, just miscommunication with the guy who did my logo, but it's worked out just fine.
That's great.
And how would I get Gator Podcast? I don't know. I started this back in 2021. Somehow it was available, and to this day, many people are shocked. How'd you get this so far into Twitter? I don't know, but it works out.
That's great. And I noticed that you're growing each week, which is great. And yeah, really appreciate you coming on. I hope it's a competitive game this weekend.
Yes, thank you for having me. And will you be in Jacksonville?
No, I'm not going to make it this weekend. I had some other plans, but hopefully in the next couple of years I hope to make it again. Last time I went was 2019.
Okay, well, I'll be honest. Hopefully, it's like the year after you didn't go.
There you go.
Fingers crossed.
I got you. And if make sure to like, subscribe, and share the Doghouse podcast. That really help us out, and I appreciate Daniel coming on today.
All right, and thank you for having me, Trey.
I think we'll give you a Go Gators and a Go Dogs.
Go Gators.
There you go. Thank you.